Hey guys, Hades here. I'm going to start a new series on culture. I have some for some U.S. states. This one in particular is just on U.S. culture in general. I also have some other country culture PowerPoints that I have. So I'm going to start this on culture. Don't know how many we'll get through, but we're going to start a culture series, and this first one is going to be on U.S. culture. What do you think we are going to talk about today? What would you rather talk about today? What does culture mean? I'll just read this out for you really quickly. Culture, by definition, is the characteristics and knowledge of a particular group of people defined by everything from language, religion, cuisine, social habits, music, art, etc. What do you know about U.S. culture? What does etymology mean? Where does the word culture come from? I like etymology. I bring it up a lot in different classes and some of my different PowerPoints. Etymology is the study of the origin of words. Culture comes from the Latin cultura, closely related to cultivation. It means the tilling or the digging to plant of the soul. Americans are sometimes accused of having absolutely no culture. Some people from certain countries say Americans have no culture. They are partially right and partially wrong. Why? What is a melting pot? What is a salad bowl? Now, those two aren't meant to be taken literally. They're in reference to culture. We'll talk a little more about them. What is an immigrant culture? The U.S. is really an immigrant culture. Countries like the U.S., Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and there are others. We consider them to be immigrant cultures. An immigrant culture or country is one that contains mostly immigrants that cannot trace their ancestry back for many generations to that particular place. The U.S. was initially referred to as a melting pot because of many people from different countries coming into a new place and blending or melting together to form a new culture. So for a long time, a lot of people referred to the U.S. as a melting pot, but then they decided that's not exactly accurate. Not all these cultures come together and and form a new culture. It happens a little differently than that. So today we might call the U.S. more of a salad bowl, or who knows, maybe something else now. A number of years ago, we still called it a salad bowl, but people like to change things constantly, especially these days. So I don't know what they would call it now, but I think it's more accurate. As many cultures from other countries come over, they don't all mainstream, right? They don't all immediately join the population at large. A lot of them will live near other people from their own country or their own culture, right? And so they don't all melt together. So a salad bowl is in reference to all these different mini cultures living together in a society, which I think is more accurate. Yes, we do have a sort of mainstream culture, but there's also a lot of people, especially first generation immigrants, who don't conform so easily to the U.S. culture. Maybe their children or grandchildren do, but they are stuck in their ways. They're used to their culture, and they might move to a neighborhood where there's predominantly people from their old culture or their old country. So we might call it a salad bowl. They mix together, but they don't melt together to form one culture. All right, some more questions for you. What are customs? What are traditions? How many times does something have to happen in order to become a tradition? A tradition is a belief or behavior passed down from within a group or society with symbolic meaning or special significance to the past. Something only has to happen twice to be loosely defined as a tradition. Right? Now, when we think of traditions, we think of things that are maybe many years old, right? Maybe decades, maybe centuries, that have been passed down from generation to generation. However, you can start a tradition maybe in your family. Let's say, I don't know, maybe you do something New Year's Eve, and then New Year's Day you and your family sit around and watch movies. Then the next year you do it again. Now you could call it a tradition, right? Now it's happened twice. Now maybe the third year you'll do it. Or maybe the tradition will just die. But really, to become a tradition, it really only has to happen twice. It doesn't have to happen hundreds of times. Customs at the airport. I'm getting sidetracked and giving you another definition of customs. It's the agency in charge of the flow of goods into a particular nation. So if you take an airplane to a foreign country, you'll have to go through customs. However, customs for what we're talking about today are certain behaviors repeated in a society or group of people, right? You'll see in that picture. Often when people see each other, they might shake each other's hands. That's a custom, right? Different cultures have different customs, and many customs transcend cultures. A lot of people shake hands, not just in U.S. culture. In many different countries, they will shake hands, but not all countries. And I wanted to talk about some strange U.S. traditions that are native to the U.S., or they're unique for the U.S. Only the U.S. has these. Okay, what is Groundhog Day? What is presidential turkey pardoning? And what was the Metric Conversion Act of 1975? The origins of Groundhog Day date back to Germany. However, it was started as a U.S. holiday in Pennsylvania. Now, this is not a national holiday where everyone gets the day off. It's sort of a quirky, strange little holiday. It was started by German immigrants, and it's basically a weather prediction. Groundhog Day is February 2nd. If the groundhog emerges and sees his shadow, there will be 6 more weeks of winter. If he doesn't, then there will be an early spring. Look, this is I'm using the term holiday quite loosely. This is a holiday that most adults don't care about. Children find it enjoyable, right? And there's an area in the U.S. where people will take a groundhog out and they'll decide to put on a little show of the groundhog, whether it sees its shadow or not. Basically, right, if he sees his shadow, means if the sun is out and he has a shadow, there will be 6 more weeks of winter. If he doesn't see his shadow, meaning it's cloudy and he's not casting a shadow, then there will be an early spring. Of course, this is not scientifically accurate. This is just a superstition that no one believes, really. And many adults, they don't Like if you tell me it's Groundhog Day on February 2nd, I won't even know, and I probably won't care. It's it's just a quirky thing in the U.S. that we have Groundhog Day. Most people, I would say over 90% of people, do not care about Groundhog Day. Another strange thing we have in the U.S. is presidential turkey pardoning. Now, we have a holiday called Thanksgiving that I will not get into in this lesson. But shortly before Thanksgiving, every year, there is a ceremony where a turkey is paraded in front of the U.S. president to be pardoned. This dates back to the 1940s. Look, it was started by a company that sold turkeys, and it was a cheap. I don't want to say cheap. It was. I don't know. It was just a way to promote buying their turkeys. And so they would have the president pardon one turkey, means that turkey will not be killed and eaten that year. Of course, we don't know what they do when they turn off the cameras. Maybe they kill it anyway. It's just a publicity stunt, really. But it became a tradition. Now, every year, or almost every year, near Thanksgiving, a president will go out and pardon a turkey. And I don't even know if that company that sold the turkey still exists. I don't know its name. But it became a tradition where before Thanksgiving, the president will pardon one turkey, and that turkey is not supposed to be eaten. Again, we don't know what happens. Maybe the next day they take it to the slaughterhouse and kill it and someone eats it. We don't know. It's just a big publicity stunt, but it's become a tradition. Okay, guys, I'm going to go through this part quickly. It's not everyone's cup of tea. Metrication is the transfer of all former systems of measurement into the metric system. The U.S. is only one of 3 countries to not use the metric system. Myanmar, or what was formerly Burma, and Liberia still don't use it. Other than that, everyone in the world likes to use the metric system. Americans don't. Congress authorized the metric system and passed the Metric Act of 1866, meaning they wanted the U.S. to convert to the metric system like other countries were doing. It was largely ignored. It was pushed in 1895, 1964, and again in 1968, and was largely ignored. In 1975, President Ford signed into law the Metric Conversion Act, stipulating that for all trade, both foreign and domestic, the metric system would be used. It was largely ignored domestically, meaning that the U.S., when trading with other countries, will use the metric system when trading goods, right? But in the U.S., people still use the old imperial system that we got from Britain. And Britain officially uses the metric system, but when you talk to them, a lot of them still use the old imperial system for certain things. Individual states also attempted to convert. In 1895, Utah, 2013, Hawaii, 2015, Oregon, the laws didn't pass or were ignored. Yes, most countries use the metric system. The U.S. really doesn't, at least domestically. If you travel down the freeway in the U.S., you will not see your destination in kilometers. You'll see it in miles. Americans were just stubborn and refused to do it, to accept it. And keep in mind, it's the government that puts up those road signs. So even though everyone's supposed to be using it, no one does, or very few people do. Most Americans won't know. Well, most Americans in the U.S. will not know much about the metric system. We are taught it in schools. Everyone's taught it in schools, or at least they were when I was younger. But then they forget it because we don't use it. Now, I travel internationally. I don't mind the metric system. I don't mind if we switch. It's easier. Everything's in multiples of 10. It makes things much easier instead of this outdated imperial system. But I also don't mind the imperial system that we use. I don't care. Should we switch? Yeah, maybe. Will we switch? Probably not. Americans are just stubborn about it, and they refuse to join in the rest of the world with the metric system. Okay, guys, that's the end of this one. I'm dividing this into 3 parts. So this is part A, and then we'll have part B and part C. Any questions, please leave them in the comments. And we'll continue on next time. Thank you so much for watching this.
Okay, bye bye.